In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness as an epidemic, warning that its impact on our health is comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Think about that for a second. Most of us worry about eating healthy, exercising, and getting enough sleep, but very few of us think about loneliness as something that could seriously affect our health. We often treat loneliness as simply just an emotion, when in reality it has become one of the most significant public health challenges facing our society today. I chose this topic because, like many people, I always just thought loneliness was a normal feeling that came and went. But after researching this issue, I realized it has consequences that extend far beyond feeling sad or isolated. This research completely changed how I view loneliness, and I hope it changes the way you think about it as well. This topic matters because loneliness can affect anybody. It doesn't matter your race, how old you are, how many followers you have online, your gender, whether you're surrounded by people every day. Anyone can experience loneliness, and its effects can be life-changing. My hope is that by the end of this speech, you'll understand why human connection is essential to our health and why even small actions can make a meaningful difference. Today, my goal is to persuade you that loneliness should be recognized as a public health crisis. This is due to its serious effects on our physical and mental health, the changes in modern society that have made it increasingly common, and the practical steps each of us can take to help reverse this growing problem. To understand why loneliness deserves our attention, we first need to understand how serious its effects really are. According to the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation, nearly 1 in 2 adults in the United States report experiencing measurable levels of loneliness. Even more alarming, the report concludes that prolonged loneliness increases the risk of premature death by nearly 30%. Many people assume loneliness only affects mental health, but that's far from the truth. Research published by the American Heart Association found that chronic loneliness is associated with higher risks of heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, and other cardiovascular problems. Our bodies respond to long-term isolation by remaining in a constant state of stress, which places enormous strain on both our minds and our physical health. But the effects on mental health are equally concerning as physical health. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, people who experience prolonged loneliness are significantly more likely to develop depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Human beings are naturally social creatures, and when meaningful social connections disappear, both our emotional and physical well-being begin to suffer. In other words, loneliness isn't simply an unpleasant feeling, but it's more of a legitimate health risk that deserves the same attention we give to other major public health concerns. So now that we've seen loneliness and how that it affects our mental health, the next question is, why has it become so common? Ironically, we live in the most connected generation in history, yet we feel so far from one another. One major reason is our increasing reliance on technology. And while social media allows us to communicate instantly with people across the world, it often replaces genuine face-to-face interaction with superficial online engagement. Having hundreds of online friends doesn't necessarily mean someone has any meaningful relationships. Research from Cygnus National Loneliness Survey found that younger adults, especially members of Generation Z, report some of the highest levels of loneliness despite spending more time connected through technology to people than any other previous generation. Modern lifestyles also contribute to this problem. Many people work remotely, move away from family or school careers, or spend less time participating in community organizations, religious groups, neighborhood activities, and more than previous generations did. These changes have reduced many of the natural opportunities people once had to build lasting relationships. According to research from Harvard University's study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness, the strongest predictor of long-term health and life satisfaction isn't wealth, fame, or career success, but it's more so the quality of our relationships. That finding reminds us that success means very little if we don't have meaningful people to share our lives with. If modern life has helped create this problem, then it also means we have the ability to become part of the solution. Although loneliness is widespread, it's not inevitable. Addressing loneliness begins with something surprisingly simple: making genuine human connection a priority again. This can mean calling a family member instead of sending a quick text, inviting a friend to lunch instead of sending a FaceTime, Introducing yourself to someone new in class, volunteering in your community, or joining a club or organization where meaningful relationships are fostered. Communities also play an important role. Places like school, your workplace, healthcare providers, and local governments can create programs that encourage social connection and reduce isolation. Community events, support groups, mentorship programs, and mental health resources all help people feel like they belong. The Surgeon General emphasizes that solving loneliness isn't just an individual's responsibility, but it requires communities. It requires hard work ethic to create environments where people feel connected, supported, and valued. The good news is that none of these solutions require extraordinary effort. Sometimes even the smallest gesture can have the biggest impact. Whether it's a simple conversation, phone call, an invitation, or even a conversation starter like, "How are you?" These small moments may seem insignificant, but to someone experiencing loneliness, they can mean the world to them. We've discussed why loneliness is such a serious issue, what's causing it, and how each of us can help. That brings me to my final message. That today we've learned that loneliness has become much more than simply feeling alone, but it's a growing public health crisis that affects millions of people through increased risk of physical illness, mental health challenges, and even premature death. We also explored how modern lifestyles and changing social habits have contributed to this epidemic, despite living in an age where we are constantly connected through technology. Finally, we discussed how each of us have the ability to make a difference by strengthening relationships, supporting our communities, and intentionally reaching out to others. The next time you have the opportunity to check in on someone, don't underestimate the impact of that small act. Whether it's a simple conversation, a phone call, or even asking someone how they're doing, it could brighten their entire day. As you leave today, I challenge you to make a connection a priority. I want you to put your phone down during a conversation, reconnect with someone you've lost touch with, or introduce yourself to someone new. You never truly know what another person is going through, and your kindness could be exactly what they need. Because sometimes changing someone's life begins with something as simple as reminding them they are not alone.